I like me some good quotes. So I brought another one this week. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Very simple, very plain, and so true, right? Especially when it comes to nutrition and our fitness. You know, we have so many responsibilities in our life. How do we fit everything in? Well, planning's going to get you there. So I could probably ramble on and on about this, but I'll just leave it up there for the literal food for thought. Chew on it in your mind. But again, just wanted to start with that, and we can kind of loop back into it. So tonight we're going to talk about metabolic adaptation as promised, and speak specifically why it matters to you, why it's an important conversation to have and to understand. Then we're going to have our raffle draw, see who's going to win our prize of unspeakable value tonight. And then whatever questions you have, whether it's metabolic adaptation related or not, I'm happy to answer that tonight as well. So again, I have the schedule up here, but we're cruising right along. Next week, I'm going to talk specifically about food and marketing. And again, I think I told you before, but one of my goals is to help people buy food and not marketing, and how to differentiate both of them so we're not buying into these things that don't actually do anything for us except take more of our money, and actually use our money meaningfully to buy food, plan meals, and eat in a very nutritious manner. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, share some resources that you might find helpful, that I really found helpful. And then after that, we're going to wrap up about ways to find success beyond the challenge. Again, I've been saying this from the beginning, whether it was the info session week 1, but this isn't just about 6 weeks of your life, but it's the next 6 months, the next 6 years. So we'll talk about the whole concept too of like the diet after the diet. Many people have been able to successfully lose weight, but they're not able to maintain that weight loss. And we'll kind of touch upon why that is tonight with this concept of metabolic adaptation. But again, you know, you don't just go to the gym and get strong and then like, oh, I'm done, I don't need to do anything else. You're going to lose your muscle mass. So, you know, fitness is a lifelong journey. It's a lifelong relationship. And the same is true for food. You know, you don't just eat well for a week or two and then, oh, everything's fine, it's great, I can go back to these other habits. That's not really how it works. So we'll talk a little bit more about the tips and ways to be successful. That's going to be different for everybody. You know, your success is not your success. Your barriers are not your barriers, or not my barriers or my successes. But again, what are some consistencies and commonalities in people who have been able to lose weight, and what that looks, again, beyond just the challenge. But again, we have lots of support built in, not only from this challenge, but again, at the gym community in general, so we can tap into that. So that's where we're headed in a few weeks. So lots of words on here, and I can certainly share this in an email as well if you're interested. But again, the point of our conversation tonight is to talk about metabolic adaptation. Maybe you've heard of this before, maybe you've never heard of it before, but it is kind of what it implies. Your metabolism adapts. Specifically, your metabolism adapts from inadequate energy or calories, and your metabolism adapts from excess or a surplus. We can kind of think of this as a deficit or a gain phase, which is kind of traditionally used in maybe like the bodybuilding world, for example, or weightlifting. But this is important for us to know because it's a physiological response to dieting. So dieting as the verb means an active behavior that usually means a reduction in calories or a reduction in energy, which is what's going to facilitate weight loss. But sometimes it's not that simple. You know, sometimes we have that looking around at what other people are doing. Why are they having success? Why are they struggling? Why are they plateauing, etc.? And this concept really seeks to explain that and give some science and construct to do more studies to better understand this. So this physiological response can make further fat loss more difficult. So it's great that our body adapts. It's awesome. Our body does so many things to make sure that we just don't wither away into nothingness. But part of our body, you know, was designed for maybe a different kind of lifestyle than maybe what we currently have. So again, many people can lose weight, but again, they might plateau or have difficulty losing further fat mass. And this is the phenomenon that describes it. You might also hear it called adaptive thermogenesis. So again, having to do with heat. If I went to PubMed, for example, and wanted to learn more about this as a nutrition professional, I would type in adaptive thermogenesis to, again, get more information. So again, a physiological response that can impede our ability to achieve further fat loss. So in general, our body has an expenditure to exist. It costs energy from food just to do its processes, to grow our nails, to blink, to have our intestines move to digest food, to lift your arm up and down. All these things require energy. They don't just happen. Sometimes some of these processes are automatic, that our body just does, and some are not. So our body's energy expenditure, when this occurs, is going to drop to a greater extent than what we would predict from a formula to calculate your needs. So say we plug in, your height, your weight, your lean body mass, your fat mass, those broken up, your age, your gender, all these things are used in a predictive equation to evaluate how much energy our body needs. But if we are metabolically adapted, say an equation predicts that we need 2,000 calories, or maybe in reality, because we're metabolically adapted, we only need 1,700. So if we're predicting to eat at a certain level and we're not making any gains in our weight, any improvements in our weight loss, it might be because our energy needs are actually lower than that. So again, usually it means for fat loss and weight loss perspectives, you need less calories than we think you do. What that is, it's going to take a bit of trial and error to kind of figure out. But it's also important to know that it goes in the other direction. So if you are in a calorie or an energy surplus, so again, if we predict you to be at 2,000, but if you're over that, because you're in a surplus, you also might have it in the opposite direction. So you have a higher energy expenditure from generally eating more. So the more you eat, the more you weigh, the more energy you need. The less you eat, the less you weigh, the less energy you need. So it's kind of intuitive, and it can be a real pain when you're actively trying to lose weight. But it's important to understand this so we can plan for it. If you lost weight on 1,700 calories, for example, well, you're at a new weight. So you're going to need less. So, calories, I think I've explained this before, you don't need one exact, number of calories for all of your adult existence. It's going to go up, it's going to go down, it's going to fluctuate. And again, obviously, the larger you are, the more energy you need. The less you weigh, the less you need. So again, it's a very dynamic number, and it's going to change and adjust every single time you have weight loss, and from fat loss specifically. That's why I do encourage, again, the use of that app, because it tracks everything from you, and it's the more data you put in there, the more information, and the better and faster you'll be able to determine what your energy needs actually are. Again, we can predict all the things, but maybe that's not true for you. Maybe your energy needs are higher, maybe they're less. So another reason this occurs is that it's the body's way of manipulating its role in energy conservation. So again, I think I said this before, but your body is a nervous Nelly. It has things to do, it needs stuff. And it has figured out lots of different ways to extrapolate energy from food sources, whether it's carbs, fats, or proteins, so that it can get it, so it can make the energy it needs to have all of our body processes function. So it doesn't want to ever lose energy. That's why we have a lot of conservation techniques, storage for extra energy as well. So again, our body's always freaking out, and we just have to kind of calm it down. And again, making sure you're eating adequately and eating enough is part of that equation. Some people, when they want to lose weight, they think, oh, well, the less I eat, the faster it's going to happen. But then you have this rebounding and become metabolically adapted. And then to sustain after a diet period, you might just, it's so low of calories that it's just unrealistic and not enjoyable. So I want things to work well for you and you to have success. So that's why it's important to understand that. So again, this is kind of like basic physics. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, rather it's transferred. So again, kind of this concept of thermogenesis, the role of heat. But in general, more calories equals more burn, less calories is less burn. I often see women who want to lose weight just go really low. I eat 1,000 or 1,200 calories a day, great. Well, eventually you're going to plateau, and then you're going to kind of live there forever if we don't kind of adapt or adjust in our nutrition as well. So eating that low as well, generally speaking, if you're at like 1,200 calories, that's not a lot of food. It takes a lot of planning. You're likely not going to be satiated. And it's also really, really, really hard on that level of calories to get all the vitamins and minerals you need from food. Just because it's inherently low in diversity, again, without lots of planning. So that low of calories is not really good to maintain that, but some people live there just because that's where metabolism is. And often we see metabolic adaptation for people who are chronic dieters, or we call it yo-yo dieting, but they lose the weight, then they regain the weight, then they lose the weight. So up and down and up and down. And one of the populations they actually identify this and have good evidence and research of its existence is with the Biggest Loser. So what's the Biggest Loser competition? Well, they have people in larger bodies. You know, they go on this TV show, they lose a lot of weight. So after that, you know, years beyond that weight loss experience, their metabolism is lower. So their energy needs are lower than what we predict. And it's because they had that rapid weight loss. And again, there was no maybe per se plan for the diet after the diet, or again, that rebound effect that we see with our body. Also, when you lose weight, your fat cells don't go away. So they just shrink. So if you had, and also as you're gaining weight, the fat cells get larger. And once they're at their maximum capacity, they become 2. So you multiply these fat cells. So if you have, you know, you started out with, 10, now you have 20. And, when there's weight gain, and then when we lose weight, those 20 fat cells don't go anywhere. They just get smaller. And that's another reason why we have the ability to regain weight quickly after a period of weight loss. So the reason this matters and to understand this is that we want to go low and slow with our calorie reductions and have it occur over time, so that at the end of our diet phase, our deficit phase, we're not at an unpleasant state. We can also use this to kind of repair our metabolism, if you will, and I'll talk a little bit about how that works. So there's lots more science that goes into this. I try to keep it really basic. There's a lot more to it, but hopefully this is kind of making sense. So moving on here to the next slide. So why does this metabolic adaptation occur? So there are 3 reasons this happens. So there's lots of words up here, and again, I'm just trying to expose you, not that you need to know about mitochondrial efficiency, but just know that it's really complex. There's lots of layers to it. It's very nuanced. It's not black and white. Everything in nutrition matters within context. Everything. That's why there's no good or bad things. It depends upon in what scenario it's related to. But metabolic adaptation occurs because our energy generating places within our cells become more efficient. Efficiency as a human, we think, oh great, I can get more done. I want to be more efficient. But when your body gets more efficient, that means it uses less energy. So kind of from a health and a wellness and a weight management perspective, having an efficient body is not really ideal. Even though we as humans, we live our lives to be efficient. How much can I get done today? What can I do? So your body can become very efficient, which again is a good thing, but not really when we're trying to lose weight, because that means they can do so much more on so much less, which means you're not burning a lot. So you don't really need to know about what mitochondria is, and hopefully that concept is kind of making sense here. In addition, when we are undergoing fat loss, we're losing weight, we're in an energy deficit, it can have impacts on our hormone levels. So the way our hormones respond is, again, they start freaking out. They're like, what's going on? Do I need to be worried? Do I need to compensate now? So I'm sure we've heard of like our thyroid hormones, our sex hormones, and our hunger hormones. All of those are actually working against it. So a lot of people, when they're trying to lose weight, they reduce their calories. They're just starving. And why are they starving? Because you have hunger hormones that's like, hey, what do you do when you need to eat? So they can work against us, even though in our mind we want to be doing something, our body is simply just fighting that. So there's conflict going on. So again, your thyroid stimulating hormone, leptin, ghrelin, insulin, testosterone, estradiol, and cortisol are all those different hormones that are affected by our weight loss efforts. So just something to be mindful of, because obviously we don't want to be upsetting our hormones. We want them nice and balanced so that they can agree with us and we can continue on our journey so that we can, again, get to our, whatever physique desire is. Lastly, part of metabolic adaptation is, again, reduce energy expenditure. So when we talk about energy balance, if you think about literally a balance, so you have energy in and energy out on each side of the scale. Obviously, if they're even, that's considered energy balance and where we want to be to maintain weight. But if energy out is higher than energy in, then we'll lose weight. And then vice versa, if energy in is higher than energy out, we gain weight. So again, that's the balancing between it. But when we talk about energy in, there's really only one way in, right? And that's with food. But when we talk about energy expenditure, the energy output, there's a lot. It's not just unidirectional the way it is when it comes in. So food is the only energy input that we're really getting. But energy expenditure, that output, there's lots of things going on. So I have a bunch of abbreviations here. Again, you don't need to know them. I just put them up there to demonstrate that there are at least 5 different variables that affect our energy output. The first one is your total daily energy expenditure. So how much you expend throughout the day based upon, again, your own physiological and genetic makeup. Then there's this concept called the thermal effect of food. So just by digesting food, you burn energy. It's a lot of work for your stomach to chemically and physically break down proteins into amino acids to be absorbed by the body and the intestines. It takes energy to digest and absorb your fats, your carbohydrates, for example. So you also burn energy by eating. So the less you eat, the less you're physically digesting, so that can also lower your energy expenditure. The more you eat, the more you have to digest, the more you're going to burn. So there's, pros and cons of both ends of that, but it's just important to know. The other is our basal metabolic rate. So the energy required just to function, just to have your organs function. It has nothing to do basically with any activities of daily living. But if you were just laying in bed, you're asleep, your body doesn't stop. It's still doing all types of things. So your metabolic rate just to do all those functions will be very variable between people. And then you have eat and neat. So eat is your exercise assisted thermogenesis. So how much energy you burn in physical activity. So obviously if you're walking or hiking or biking or fidgeting or coming to CrossFit, for example, you are obviously going to burn energy in that regard, but that can vary significantly. And then you also have non-exercise thermogenesis as well. So some people just maybe blink more than others, or I said fidgeting for eat, but it's more in the neat category. So again, people just move or shake their leg when it's crossed over their knee, for example. So all these combined affect our energy output. So again, food is just one input, but energy expenditure is highly variable, and that's what kind of predicts our energy balance and can really influence our success at losing weight and maintaining that weight loss. Again, research shows over and over again that people can lose weight. It's really weight loss that's not the problem. It's how do you maintain that weight loss? Again, the diet after the diet. We have to plan to, not just to lose weight, then what do you do next? So that's kind of where I'm here to help support that. And again, explain this to you, because all I want for you is to be successful. So understanding these things so we can plan and understand these will help have you realize success. So now that we know that we have this physiological phenomenon that's just kind of against us all the time, what do we do about it? Right? Like that's all we care about. So it's like, okay, I kind of presented a problem, so let's talk about solutions. So how do we counteract this and reduce its effects? Well, again, part of what we talked about a few weeks ago is this slow weight loss. So generally speaking, to have success at weight loss, it's best not to have it be rapid. Everyone likes to look at this before and after pictures and see all the weight that dropped, but that's really not ideal, especially over a short period of time. So again, this 1%, you want it less than or equal to. So obviously it's a percent, and that's going to vary wherever you start. If you're wanting to lose weight but don't weigh that much, obviously 1% is a lot less than if you're starting at like 400 pounds, for example. 1% of that is significantly more, so again, it varies. But slow weight loss is going to be the best for you in the long term. In addition to that, recommending intermittent or a non-linear restriction. So what does that mean? So intermittent means occasionally. So some people do a continuous energy reduction. So again, linear, it's a straight line. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and so on is a straight energy restriction. But there is some evidence that shows that that is not beneficial long term. So having calorie deficits followed by just eating normally. So which is slightly different than intermittent fasting, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So in addition to making sure your weight loss is slow and controlled over time, and again, building in maybe diet breaks, for example, the other thing that's really important is to make sure we're eating adequate protein. So again, when I did your nutrition prescriptions and I calculated your protein needs, it was based upon a lot of different variables. And remember, in the order of priority of nutrition, calories are always the first most important, and protein is the second most important. So protein is really important to focus on. And then making up the rest of your energy needs with carbs and fat in whatever ratio makes sense to you. So again, it doesn't matter, it's personal preference, what is realistic, what is achievable, what is sustainable. And then like I said, we need to plan for our life after weight loss. Again, you lost 10 pounds, great. Now what do? Do you go back to your same eating patterns and lifestyle? Well, no, because the weight's probably going to creep back on again. So if you want to lose 10 pounds, keep it off, then we need to keep those behaviors and be mindful of that. Another strategy we can talk about is reverse dieting. So in the same way that we would restrict or reduce or drop your energy needs to promote weight loss or fat loss, we can also do the reverse. So if you are someone who has just difficulty losing weight, or you have a history of yo-yo dieting or weight cycling where your weight goes up and down, or you lose, but then you regain more than previous, utilizing the strategy of a reverse diet can be helpful. So we can have you at a diet calorie level, and then every week we're just going to add a little bit more calories, so that you can end up at a higher calorie range, which is way more enjoyable. So say you end up like after a diet phase where you need 1,200 calories to maintain your weight. Again, 1,200 calories is like nothing. But if you could go through a reverse diet and gradually add those calories back, you can improve your metabolism over time as well. So it is a strategy that can be helpful, again, especially if someone has a chronic history. I'm talking like 30 years of just yo-yo dieting, weight loss on this diet, off this diet, only, drops weight for the summer, regains in the winter, things like that. Reverse dieting can be really helpful to realize more success for future weight loss, because again, it kind of repairs your metabolic rate. So you burn more than you did before. And then the last recommendation to keep in mind is to avoid excessive cardio training. This can put a lot of stress on our body over time. And that's why, I guess in contrast or in complement to that, that's why resistance training, such as doing CrossFit, is so very important, because again, it's going to build that lean body mass. And it usually over time is less detrimental than, again, excessive cardio training. What do I mean by excessive cardio training? Like going on an elliptical or a treadmill for like an hour, or riding your bike for excessive amounts of time. It gets old pretty quickly, and it's not really sustainable. Sure, maybe 1 week in your schedule in your life you could do extra cardio training, but again, it's not realistic long term, and that level of stress on your body too can have detriments. So obviously, no physical activity is not good for us, but too much physical activity is also not good for us. So whether it's food, whether it's fitness, any aspect of our life, we're always trying to achieve this balance where we're getting enough stress to get a response from something, but we're not getting too much stress that it's counteracting everything we're trying to do. So these are general recommendations and strategies to follow, and this is the reason why I've been explaining the type of diet to follow, your energy needs, why to go so slowly. Because again, I want to protect your metabolism. I want to preserve it. I want you to be successful. So these are kind of the ways that have been shown in the scientific literature to help individuals, again, reach their personal fitness or physique or nutrition goals. So that's literally all I have about metabolic adaptation. You might have questions. You might not have questions. So go for it. Anything? A little quick question of mine. Have you heard of this before? No, you're gonna know. Yes. Okay. Did this expand your understanding of it? Yes.
So, okay, say the carbon has 1,200 calories, 1,300, and that will automatically adjust up and down.
Yeah.
How long is that sustainable until the body begins to adjust? I know it's individual, right?
It is.
Does it go by my weight loss, my fat loss, or adjusts accordingly?
Exactly. Yeah. So once you get into it, like I was looking at mine this morning just to see my trends over the past several months. So yeah, the more data it has, the better. Usually they overshoot in the beginning, and then every check-in, it's going to reassess and reevaluate. So yeah, that's a pretty low calorie level. But again, if the result is to get that weight loss, then that's what it's going to need to be. Even for example, like some bodybuilders, like those physique contests they have like on ESPN or whatever, when those athletes are trying to get down, like some men, might drop to 160 pounds. I mean, these are grown men, full of muscle, they're very well defined. They'll even end their deficit, their cut phase for a show around 1,300 calories. So even grown men to get that level of leanness is low. So obviously in that, realm, they're not going to want to all of a sudden go back to a normal way of eating because rapid weight regain is also not as good as rapid weight loss. So like bodybuilders are just a really easy way to kind of visually see that. But again, to get that level of leanness, the calories go down pretty significantly. But again, how do we rebound after that to make sure that we can get back to a normal body weight and be successful and repair our metabolism? So again, usually in the Carbon app, they overshoot in the beginning, see where your weight fluctuates, and then adjust from there. Some people also just need to make the hard choice that, maybe someone in their heart and their mind wants to be X size and X body weight. And this is their goal. And yet they're presented with facts that are just really hard to get to where they want to go. So there is sometimes points where we just need to be accepting of where we are or understanding where we need to go and how drastic it needs to be to see that success. I do believe that no matter what shape, size, or form we take, we should feel comfortable in our own skin. So that's why I always like to talk about that and a lot of body positivity as well. It's also easier said than done. And a lot of people, weight loss isn't just about a number on a scale. Oftentimes it's about an emotion. I was at a online continuing education event a few weeks ago, and there was a dietitian, counseling a client, and she's like, "Oh, I want to weigh this." Okay, well, tell me more about that. Why do you want to weigh that number? Well, because I just do. It's like, okay, well, why do you want to do that? More digging, more pulling, and well, I want to feel more confident. So there's that emotion. Again, it's not the weight, it's the emotion, it's that outcome. I want to feel more comfortable, and I think that at that weight, I'll be more comfortable or confident. And then it's like, okay, well, when you are at that weight, when you are more comfortable and more confident, what's going to happen in your life? And she's like, I will feel more comfortable dating. So again, the more you dig and kind of see and get to the why behind it. So the weight loss really wasn't about the weight loss. It was about having a relationship with another human being. And this person felt that the best way to do that was to lose weight, to be more confident, to be more comfortable, so she would be considered attractive enough to date and to have a partner to, journey on through life with. So that's why I kind of ask the other questions and don't always touch on superficial weight loss things, because it is kind of black and white. This is what you do, it's calculated, here's your food, you weigh and measure, you put it in here, but weight loss is not linear. It's not from point A to point B. And, we need to kind of think about our why, what is going to be different about our life once we achieve this weight, and maybe getting to some deeper levels. What we provide as dietitians, we call it medical nutrition therapy. Therapy is kind of the key word, but sometimes a lot of this weight loss stuff and, body acceptance too is, we might need a therapist pulled in here, because some of these weight things are more than just physical. And those are important things to kind of break through too, if they're barriers to realizing something. So again, if anyone has weight loss, I will be more than happy to support them on their journey, but sometimes it's important to know other things about that weight goal to really make the process realistic. And again, understand these other things that happen within our body and physiologically, so that we can realize whatever we want. We're humans, we only have one life to live. We should succeed and do these awesome things. We also need to know what the reality is, or what the truth might be behind something that we're trying to do as well. So that's my little example.
I think for a year from now, I'm a lot more fit, but taking this program, and then down the way, I'm going to. And I can 20 pounds, here, and a pounds, not others. I'm focusing more on fit.
That's great. It is slow. People forget that, weight gain generally is gradual. And if it took you 3 years to gain weight, most people want it off in 3 months, which I totally get. I completely empathize, but unfortunately it's just not reality. But just understanding okay, this is what I want. It's not going to happen in 3 months, but let me just stick to my goal. Let me be tenacious with it. Let me understand, and let me just continue to persevere. And like I said, it's always progress over perfection, because one day you'll just wake up and be like, wow, look how far I've come. Look what I've done. Look at my journey. So, yeah. Any other non-metabolic adaptation questions?
High protein, low fat, please.
There we go. We'll brainstorm. Do you have any questions? So, the best protein is from animals, right? Most bioavailability and smallest volume. So, kind of the traditional things you think of are egg whites, ground turkey, ground chicken, lean ground beef. That's hard to find, but it does exist. You just have to shop around. Obviously, chicken breasts. As far as non-animal proteins, soy is a really excellent source. It's higher than the other plant proteins. Dairy, again, low fat or fat-free dairy is predominantly a protein source. Carbohydrates vary depending upon, between ricotta cheese, cottage cheese, yogurt, for example, the different styles of yogurt is going to impact protein as well. But when it comes to low-fat proteins, those are kind of the gold standard, the easiest way to get it up there. The other thing is protein powders. Usually protein powders are inherently low-fat because of the way they're processed. There's tons of protein powders on the market. Again, it's all about what, are you willing to pay for it? Do you like the taste? There's whey, there's pea protein, there's soy protein, there's hemp protein, there's other like protein blends. So again, it's whatever you personally choose and like to use can be helpful. Again, there's protein bars as well that can do it. Those can significantly vary in fat content though. And if you're gonna have a bar that's high in protein and low in fat, it's gonna taste bad. It's kind of yucky. And so it's hard to recommend them even though they're good sources because they're not really tasty and can, again, get high in fat. So it just depends. So those are dairy, animal sources, and soy is really just the best source of protein. Obviously, you can get creative, and it depends on how much you're recommended. Anything over 100, 120 grams a day is really hard to just kind of achieve without a supplement, without a protein supplement. But again, you need protein to build all your muscle mass, to repair your body, and make sure that we're getting adequate in a deficit. If you're out of a calorie deficit and you're more like maintaining your weight, your protein needs drop. So keep that in mind too. So during the weight loss phase, during the cut phase, the deficit phase, whatever you want to call it, protein needs are really high, but once you come out of it, they are lower. So it is also temporary. And again, kind of we talked about reverse dieting, but also diet breaks. Generally speaking, to have that continuous energy restriction is really exhausting, like physically and mentally, planning everything, packing your lunch bag, putting in the, doing the things. It's a lot of time throughout your day. A lot of mental energy is spent on that. So we do also recommend going on diet breaks. Some people find a lot of success by having an energy restriction for like 2 weeks. Then they'll take an entire week off where they're just at maintenance calories. And it's crazy how if you get like 300, 400, 500 calories added back after a cut phase, it feels so luxurious. You're like, oh my God, I can eat all the things. So once you actually start to experience that and understand it, you can again have weight loss plateau. So again, we should never think of weight loss being straight, being linear. And if you have weight loss like that, it usually means something's wrong. So I usually get consulted at the hospital to talk to patients who have rapid weight loss, which is something we don't want them to experience. So think about that too. Sometimes it's easy to plow through a week, just put your blinders on, be in that deficit, get your protein, and just like, oh, I need a break, and just kind of go at maintenance. And it's like, okay, I'm going to do this again for another week and have my deficit. You can also do some of the intermittent fasting protocols. Obviously, you can do them daily. A very popular one is like an 8-16 protocol where you eat in an 8-hour feeding window and you fast in a 16-hour. That's one of many intermittent fasting diet protocols. You can also eat normally for 5 days and then be in a calorie restriction for 2. You can do a week on, a week off, just like those diet break concepts. So it doesn't have to be going hard all the time, foot on the gas pedal, weight loss, here I come. It's again, how do we preserve our metabolism? How are we able to eat adequately, enjoy our food, not feel like we're starving, not have our hunger, hormones talking in our ear, being like, eat this, or getting that hangry sensation. It's very overwhelming when you're cutting calories. You hear voices, eat this, do that. Again, your body just wants to protect you. So sometimes it's important to just embrace that as well and accept that you have to work together with someone who doesn't support maybe your personal goals for weight loss. So there is a bit of an internal struggle there that happens too, but it can certainly be overcome with planning and thoughtfulness.
How does carbon support us if I wanted to do like 3 weeks with their calorie restriction? how this carbon adjust that would be.
So when you check in, whatever your check-in day is, you change your goal. So you change from fat loss or weight loss to maintenance.
And then if I go back the next week, I can go back and it keeps everything. Like,
Yeah, so all you do is toggle.
nice.
And again, so I redid mine this morning and it gave me my protein to be 136 grams. That's a little aggressive for me. Like I know I'm not going to be able to hit it. So it's also like, why should I set a goal for myself that I'm not going to achieve? So I bumped my protein grams per body weight down to 124. 124 is still high, but I can hit it. I hit it today. So, you know, also just being realistic that even if the app does recommend whatever, you can toggle it a little bit or tweak it based upon what you understand about your own body and your dietary preferences. You know, obviously, if this is what's recommended, lots of things in life are recommended, and they're not always adhered to. And again, you have to work with yourself. Like, I'm never going to hit 136 in my current like work and life situation. So I'm like, nope, I'm going to move it down, and then that's going to be more realistic for me. So you can do that as well. So obviously, in nutrition, like we have these ideals, but like nothing's perfect, and you know, there's so many nuances in nutrition. I'm just giving you guidance, but what you do with it, again, you know your body the best and how you can manipulate it and work optimally for you. So, yeah. So I'm just going to hit stop over here. But again, if you have any other questions on this